An alien woman left for Vultures by her family. A human's rescue changed everything. The twin moons of Caldera Prime cast long shadows across the desolate research outpost, where Dr. Rihanna Voss stood alone in the observatory. Her slender fingers traced the holographic star charts, searching for something more than just celestial coordinates. Outside, the wind howled through the rocky terrain, a constant reminder of the planet's unforgiving nature. Rihanna had been stationed here for 3 solar cycles, studying the mysterious energy signatures that pulsed intermittently beneath the planet's crust. Most of her colleagues had long since given up, transferred to more promising research stations, but she remained, driven by an inexplicable conviction that something extraordinary waited to be discovered. A sudden alert flashed across her communication panel. Unusual seismic activity was building near the western research grid, an area they had previously marked as geologically inert. Rihanna leaned closer, her heart racing. The energy readings were unlike anything she had ever seen before. Commander Darian Frost entered the observatory, his weathered face a map of countless interstellar missions. "Another late night, Dr. Voss?" he asked, a hint of concern in his voice. Rihanna didn't look up. "Something's happening," she muttered, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "These readings, they're not random. There's a pattern." Frost approached, studying the oscillating graphs. His cybernetic eye, a replacement from a mission gone wrong decades ago, scanned the data with mechanical precision. "Interesting," he murmured. "But interesting doesn't mean safe." The outpost had strict protocols. Unexplained phenomena were to be reported, analyzed, and typically avoided. But Rihanna was not like most researchers. Her reputation for unconventional approaches had both impressed and frustrated her superiors. "I want to investigate," she declared, already pulling up the preliminary expedition gear specifications. Frost raised an eyebrow. "Alone?" "If necessary," Rihanna responded, her green eyes reflecting the holographic displays. "This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." The communication system crackled to life. A transmission from the planetary survey team revealed additional context. Strange electromagnetic disruptions had been detected in the same region. Whatever was happening, it was growing more complex by the minute. As night fell over Caldera Prime, Rihanna prepared her expedition gear. Thermal suits, advanced scanning equipment, emergency beacon. Standard protocol dictated comprehensive preparation. But there was nothing standard about the anticipation building within her. Something waited in the rocky valleys beyond the research outpost, something that defied conventional understanding, and she intended to find out exactly what it was. Little did she know, the journey she was about to undertake would challenge everything she understood about science, exploration, and the very nature of connection itself. The first transport rover was prepped, supplies checked, communication systems online. Rihanna took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the launch sequence. One decision, one moment. The precipice of discovery beckoned, and Dr. Rihanna Voss was ready to answer its call. The transport rover cut through the rocky terrain of Caldera Prime, its advanced suspension system absorbing the brutal landscape's uneven contours. Dr. Rihanna Voss monitored the external sensors, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface with practiced precision. Hours into the expedition, the geological anomalies became more pronounced. Strange crystalline formations began to emerge from the rocky ground, their iridescent surfaces catching the pale light of the planet's distant sun. These weren't natural rock formations, they were something else entirely. "Commander Frost, are you receiving these readings?" Rihanna spoke into the communication system, her voice tight with excitement. The response was delayed, punctuated by static. "Confirm unusual mineral composition." Frost's voice crackled. "But proceed with extreme caution." The rover's sensors began to malfunction as she approached a particularly dense cluster of the strange crystals. Electronic interference increased, creating a web of disruption that made her instruments increasingly unreliable. Suddenly, the ground beneath the rover shifted. A massive tremor rocked the landscape. Rihanna's safety harness engaged automatically as the vehicle tilted dramatically. Crystal formations erupted around her, creating a surreal landscape of light and movement. What had seemed like a routine geological survey was transforming into something far more extraordinary. As the rover stabilized, Rihanna noticed something impossible. One of the crystals was moving. Not shifting or vibrating, but actually moving with purpose. It extended tendrils of light, probing the environment with an almost sentient curiosity. Bioluminescent patterns rippled across its surface, creating complex geometric designs that seemed to pulse with an internal rhythm. "This is impossible," Rihanna whispered, activating her suit's advanced recording systems. Every scientist dreams of a moment like this, a discovery that could rewrite everything known about planetary life and geological formations. The crystal formation began to resonate, sending out waves of electromagnetic energy that made the hair on Rihanna's neck stand on end. Her scientific mind raced. Was this a life form? A complex mineral structure with unexpected properties, or something entirely beyond current scientific understanding? A sudden transmission broke through the interference. "Dr. Voss, emergency protocol activated." Commander Frost's voice cut through the static. "Planetary defense systems are detecting unprecedented energy signatures. You need to." The communication cut off. Rihanna was alone. The crystal formations continued their mesmerizing dance, surrounding the rover like living sentinels. Each movement seemed calculated, deliberate, challenging everything she understood about planetary science. Something was awakening beneath the surface of Caldera Prime, and she was at the very epicenter of a discovery that could change everything humanity knew about life in the universe. Her hand hovered over the emergency extraction button. Protocol demanded she return immediately. But every fiber of her scientific being screamed to stay, to observe, to understand. One decision could mean the difference between the greatest scientific discovery in human history, or total catastrophe. The crystalline formations continued their mesmerizing dance around Rihanna's rover, transforming the desolate landscape into a living, breathing ecosystem of light and energy. Hours passed, and the scientific instruments oscillated between complete failure and capturing fragments of data that defied conventional understanding. A sudden pulse of energy erupted from the ground. The rover's systems flickered, then stabilized. But something had changed. In the distance, a figure emerged from the crystalline landscape. Humanoid, but not human. The being moved with a fluidity that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. Iridescent skin shimmered with the same bioluminescent patterns Rihanna had observed in the crystal formations, suggesting a profound connection between the creature and the surrounding environment. Rihanna's training kicked in. First contact protocols demanded observation, non-aggression, and absolute caution. Her hand hovered near the communication system, but something told her traditional methods would be useless here. The being approached the rover. No threat display, no aggressive posturing, just a profound, almost curious movement that suggested intelligence far beyond simple biological survival. A wave of energy passed through the rover's shell. Not destructive, not invasive, more like a communication attempt. Rihanna's communication device crackled to life, but not with words. With images, fragmented memories, glimpses of a civilization that existed beyond linear time and space, memories of migration, of survival, of a journey that spanned countless light years. The being, if it could be called a being, was not just an individual. It was a fragment of a collective consciousness, the living memory of a species that had transcended traditional understanding of life itself. "Who are you?" Rihanna whispered, knowing the question was both meaningless and profound. The response came not in words, but in a cascade of emotional and sensory information. Pain of separation, hope of reconnection, a deep, almost primordial longing for understanding. Outside, the crystal formations began to resonate in harmony with the being's movements. The entire landscape was alive, communicating in a language that existed beyond human comprehension. Rihanna realized she was witnessing something extraordinary. Not just a new life form, but a completely different mode of existence. A civilization that didn't distinguish between environment, consciousness, and communication. Her scientific mind raced. How could she document this? How could she even begin to explain what she was experiencing? The being extended a luminescent tendril toward the rover's exterior. Not as a threat, but as an invitation. Contact was imminent. One touch could mean everything, or nothing. The fate of understanding hung in a moment of perfect, suspended potential. The luminescent tendril hovered inches from the rover's exterior, pulsing with an energy that seemed to blur the lines between biology and pure information. Rihanna's breath caught in her throat, her scientific training warring with an unprecedented sense of anticipation. A sudden surge of energy rippled through the crystalline landscape. The being, this extraordinary entity, began to transform. Its form shifted, becoming less defined, more fluid. Patterns of light and energy danced across its surface, creating intricate geometric designs that seemed to tell a story of migration, survival, and cosmic journey. Warning systems in the rover blared to life. Radiation levels spiked. Electromagnetic interference created a symphony of electronic chaos. But Rihanna remained focused, her hand steady, her scientific curiosity burning brighter than any potential danger. The communication continued, not through words, but through a cascade of sensory information. Memories of a civilization that had long since transcended physical limitations. Glimpses of worlds beyond human comprehension. A narrative of survival that stretched across unimaginable distances. Rihanna understood now that this was more than a first contact scenario. This was an invitation to understanding. The being's energy began to stabilize, coalescing into a more coherent form. Tendrils of light probed the rover's exterior, not as a threat, but as a method of communication. Each touch was a question. Each pulse of energy a fragment of a story waiting to be understood. Her communication systems, previously overwhelmed, began to resolve. Fragmented words emerged. Concepts. Glimpses of a language that existed beyond traditional linguistic barriers. Passage. One fragment suggested. Reconnection. The landscape around her continued to pulse and shift. The crystal formations were not just geological structures. They were a living network, a collective consciousness that spanned the entire planet. Rihanna realized she stood at the threshold of the most significant scientific discovery in human history. This was not just about finding new life. This was about understanding a completely different mode of existence. The being's energy began to concentrate. A silent invitation hung in the air. Contact was possible. Understanding was within reach. But at what cost? The rover's systems continued to fluctuate. Emergency protocols screened for caution. But Rihanna Voss was not a scientist who backed down from the unknown. Her hand moved toward the external interface. One touch could change everything. The universe held its breath. The moment of contact erupted with a cascade of sensory information that defied human comprehension. As Rihanna's hand touched the rover's external interface, the boundary between her consciousness and the alien entity dissolved. Memories flooded her mind. Not just memories, but entire ecosystems of experience. She saw civilizations that existed in patterns of energy, societies that communicated through complex vibrational languages, entire species that understood existence as a fluid, interconnected phenomenon. The being, which she now understood was a collective consciousness rather than an individual entity, shared its history. Millennia of cosmic migration. Survival through transformation. A journey that had spanned galaxies, transcending physical limitations. Rihanna's scientific mind struggled to process the information. Each pulse of energy was a language more complex than any human communication system. Emotions, scientific understanding, historical narratives, all intertwined in a single breathtaking moment of connection. Outside the rover, the crystalline landscape began to reshape itself. Geological formations liquefied and reformed, creating intricate structures that seemed to breathe with a living intelligence. The entire planet was responding to this moment of connection. Commander Frost's voice crackled through the communication system, distant and increasingly irrelevant. "Dr. Voss, report immediately. Your readings are off the charts. We cannot guarantee your safety." But safety was no longer a relevant concept. The alien consciousness began to integrate with Rihanna's understanding. She could feel the planet's history, the migrations, the cosmic journeys, the profound loneliness of a species that had traveled beyond traditional boundaries of existence. And then, something unexpected happened. The entity recognized something in Rihanna, not just her scientific curiosity, but a deeper resonance, a similar spirit of exploration, of pushing beyond known boundaries. An invitation formed, not just to observe, but to participate. The crystalline structures began to respond to her thoughts. Geological formations shifted with her imagination. The entire planet became an extension of collective consciousness. Rihanna understood now that this was more than a scientific discovery. This was a transformation. The rover's systems began to dissolve, merging with the planetary energy. Traditional boundaries between technology, biology, and consciousness blurred. She was becoming something more, something beyond human. Something extraordinary. The communication with Commander Frost faded. The traditional human world became distant. A new understanding was emerging. A convergence of worlds. Of possibilities. Of potential. Rihanna Voss was no longer just a scientist. She was a bridge between what was known and what could be.